So if you're looking for a new Lipo battery for your Rustler, Bandit, Slash, Stampede, whatever, or maybe this is your first Lipo battery, I would recommend that you go to hobbycity.com, or it's also known as hobbyking.com. You can just type in whatever in your address bar and it'll come up with their site. I would recommend going on there and looking for the Zippy series of batteries or Tenergy. Yeah, they're both great, and they are dirt cheap, and you get an amazing battery for it. I've never actually used a battery like this in my Rustler before, but I've used these batteries in my helicopter and my micro and been very, very impressed with them. In fact, they're better than some of the more expensive batteries. This battery was $15 and you get a 5,000 milliamp hour 20C battery. So that's just amazing, and it can be charged at like 2Cs. So this is just an outstanding battery. But the problem with a lot of their packs are that they require modifying of the battery tray compartment. Like to make this battery fit, I had to widen up my compartment, lengthen it, and cut a little notch for my battery wires to go through. So that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do today. It's actually a fairly straightforward process. It just takes a little while, and you want to make sure you do it outside or in a really well ventilated area because it does create a lot of dust. And there are a few Zippy packs or Tenergy packs that do not require any modifying, or they might require a little bit of modifying, such as cutting out a little notch for the wires to come out of. And I will give you links to those packs in the description. Some of them are a little more pricey, but I mean, yeah, if you want to stick with the absolute cheapest pack and you're willing to do a little bit of work to make it fit, this is the pack you want. And I'll put a link to this one in the description as well. So to get started, I'm actually not going to be using my Rustler to show you how to do this. That would be sort of pointless because it's already modified. My 9-year-old brother has a stock Rustler, or it's pretty much stock. It has like an aftermarket motor, but that doesn't really matter. But as you can see, this battery is hopeless. To make this one fit, and he also got one of these batteries. This is his first Lipo battery, so I guess he'll see if he likes it or not. I'm sure he will. But as you can see, this battery, it's just hopeless. I mean, there's no way you can make that thing fit in the stock battery compartment. So I'm going to take the chassis off, and to do that, you basically just unscrew this screw, those two screws on the shock tower, and what else? Flip it over here, take out this screw, so the A-arms come off. The screw heads might also be on this end. Take off these 6 screws, take off these 3 screws, and I believe that's about it. Everything should come apart then, and then of course you can unscrew your ESC and take off the ESC mounting plate, take off the receiver, take these things out with your little wheel nut wrench, and you'll just have a chassis left. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back in a minute, and I'll show you how to start modifying. So as far as tools go, I'm going to be using this Dremel to modify my chassis, and this is the only tool I'm going to be using. It's just super versatile. It comes with a bunch of little bits, and I got this thing on sale for like $20, so they're very cheap, and I guarantee you if you buy one, you're going to be using it for more than just modifying your chassis. Now as far as the individual bits go, I'm going to be using this little guy with these little cutoff wheels. I'm going to be mainly using these to cut out the back wall of my chassis, but I might use them in other ways as well. And the second thing I'll be using, I'll just put these out here so you can have a good look at them. And then the other thing I'll be using is this sanding drum to mainly just finish stuff off, and it's also the primary tool I use to widen up my chassis. You'll see how I use that later. And then the other tool I'll be using, you probably recognize this, it's a drill bit that fits into my Dremel. And I'll be using this to pre-drill some holes right here so that I can cut out a little notch for my battery wires to come out of. And this is the last little thing I'll be using. This is almost resembles a little kind of miniature milling machine bit because it cuts sideways. It doesn't cut down, it cuts sideways. I'll be using this to get into the corners and stuff like that. Just finish stuff off really nicely. So yeah, I think that's about it. I'll go plug this in and show you how to start modifying. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is cut out this notch to allow the battery wires to fit through there, right? So I'm going to be using my drill bit, and you'll notice I have this little red line drawn on here just to indicate the stuff I want to take out right off the bat here. And I'm going to be drilling a couple holes right at the very bottom there, and then I'll show you what I'll do next. So I'll just drill those holes here. Here's one. So as you can see, I drilled my hole through there. I actually only managed to get one through. I wasn't quite expecting them to be that size, but I mean, it'll still work. Now I'm going to take my cutoff wheel and just cut all the way down there to that hole, and hopefully my piece of plastic will fall out. I'll cut on this side and this side, so here it goes. Alright, there you go. It doesn't look very nice, but it'll do the trick. As you can see, I've made several small cuts down there, and now these pieces of plastic will, you can just snap those out like that. Now it's time to finish up the edges. So now I'm going to use that tool that I showed you earlier, and I'm just going to start on this side and just push my way through to the other side and keep repeating the process, and then I'll work it up and down just to smooth out the edges. And I think that'll be about it. So I just finished that off. You sort of got the idea there. You just take this little bit here and just keep on working away at it. I like this bit so much because it cuts on the side, sort of like a milling machines bit. So you can just kind of push it where you want it to go and it'll go there nicely. And yeah, it just worked great. As you can see, it turned out nicely. I may have to do a little bit more work later to get my battery to fit, but I mean, that's the basic idea. So this is the most second common modification to fit a battery in your battery tray compartment, and that is cutting out the back wall. To do this, I'll be using this cutting wheel and just cutting about 5 slits along there, about 4 millimeters apart, 3 or 4 millimeters apart from one another. The first one's going to be right along the bottom, and then the next one will be about 4 millimeters up, and so on and so on. And I'll do that, and then I'll show you what you do next. So there are my 4 slits I've dremeled in there quite nicely. It is a bit of a mess, but that doesn't really matter. Now you could use a cutoff wheel for this, but I'm just going to save some time and use some wire snips and just cut these little bars out that go across here, just like this. There's one, the other side. There we go. So you probably know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go down, do the same thing. There we go. So now that that's done, I'm going to take my sanding drum and just sand down these posts back here to get rid of those all the way to the wall. And then to finish off the bottom there, it's already pretty flat. I don't have to do a whole lot, but I think I'm going to use this bit here, which is basically the same as this little thing here, except it's a different shape. And I'll just work that along the bottom just to smooth things out a bit. So, as you can see there, my sanding drum and this other little bit that I used finished this up quite nicely here. Just worked away at it, and yeah, very pleased with that. So now it's time for the last modification to make this battery fit, and that is widening up the chassis. Now, this is actually probably the easiest modification out of the 3, but doesn't mean it's the fastest. It is probably the most painstaking, hardest part of modifying your chassis. It's just the most straightforward. What we're going to do is just take a sanding drum like that, and you're just going to flip it on and just keep on running back and forth along the chassis just to thin out the walls, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So you can see that after about probably 10 minutes of work, the battery does fit, although it is super snug. So I am going to keep on working at it here, and this is where it gets kind of tricky because you have to keep on looking at where the plastic is rubbing against the battery, and that's the part you want to Dremel off, because you don't want to Dremel off, you only want to Dremel off what you need to remove. So I'll keep on working at it, and hopefully I'll get it pretty soon here. So this is probably about 20 minutes later or so, and I've finished it up. Looks fairly nice, and the battery fits in nice and snugly, but I mean it still goes in relatively easy, as you can see there, and that's what you want. You don't want the battery to rattle around. In there, that means you've taken off an unnecessary amount of plastic. This is good because it goes in really easily, and it's a nice snug fit. So now as for spacers, because you see if I place this battery in my chassis here, it doesn't fit correctly. You can see the wires really keep one side of the battery up, so you're going to need to put something in the bottom of your chassis to space it out. And this little bit of plastic that I cut out here works really well. Just some plastic I've electrical taped together, about 4 strips there, 1 millimeter thick or about 1/16 of an inch thick. Just stick that in the bottom like that. Another little piece for the top here. And the battery is in there pretty nicely. You see it sits flat now. And the other actually probably easier solution is just to cut a piece of foam. This is just foam, you can buy it from like a craft store or I don't know, anywhere. You can get it in like any kind of packaging. Some packaging comes with it as well. Cut a few more strips here for the back as well. Those will go in there. This piece will go up front, and then this strip will sit in there like that. And my battery fits in really snugly, and this is actually possibly the better solution because this battery is not going anywhere. Anyways, I'm running out of time. Those are just a few solutions. You're gonna have to be creative. Yeah, thanks for watching.